In the opening scene, we see a busy morning in the Greek household of Athena, who is busy helping her son with his breakfast while her husband and daughter are taking care of themselves. Her sister, Tula, comes to join the rest of the family in the dining area, asking how her old and sick mother is doing. Thankfully, their mother, Maria, who is suffering from Alzheimer's, remembers the discussion they had with her the previous night concerning Tula's travel to Greece for the reunion in her late father's village. Everyone cheers on seeing she remembered every detail. Tula gives her mom a goodbye hug before heading out with her husband for her trip. She reminisces on the time her mother used to be strong enough to single-handedly take care of the family and cook their family dinner. But ever since the passing of their father, the immigrant family, once sticking together and running a restaurant, now feels scattered. On the ride to the airport, her brother Nick calls to confirm she's with their dad's journal and to know who he'll be driving with. Nick is excited he will be finally having some time without his kids around, but Tula sighs, seeing her brother being overly dramatic about the trip. The trip will be their first time in Greece, as their parents never went back because they had to work hard and give their all to them, so their kids will have the opportunity to take the trip they never did. Tula's dad requested she go to the reunion, find his friends, and give them the journal his life story is in. For Tula, it's a vacation because her dad told her to take some time off since she's starting to look old. So, he feels super excited she will be vacationing after all. Tula and her husband arrive at the airport to meet their daughter, Paris. The other members of the Portokalos family soon fled the airport while some cousins come to wish them a safe flight. As soon as they all board the plane, they all fill the atmosphere with noise while Paris quietly takes her seat and goes through a magazine. Her Aunt Vula hires a personal assistant to come along with her throughout her trip. When he arrives, he is surprised to find Paris, who dated him once and ghosted afterwards. Her aunts Vula and Frietta giggle mischievously among themselves. They intentionally got Aristotle on the trip, knowing fully well that she refused to turn up to her date with him, and now Paris feels frustrated that her family just cannot respect her boundaries to the extent of bringing her school friend turned ex on their trip. Aristotle assures her not to be bothered by his presence. He tries to switch seats instead of sitting beside her, but Vula insists he sits on the seat number allocated to him. She advises the two of them to make up and make out before taking her leave. Tula sees Aristotle and she volunteers to switch seats with Paris. She feels something else is going on with Paris, which she refuses to disclose. Her husband nudges her to let Paris handle her issues instead of meddling. Just then, the purser threatens the rowdy Greeks on board to sit down or else the plane will not move an inch. Tula agrees with her husband and lays her on his shoulder as the plane suddenly becomes quiet. The next morning, the announcer welcomes the passengers to Athens as they land at the airport. Tula and her family walk through the arrival section and her excitement knows no bounds as she beholds the beauty of Athens. Aristotle disrupts their moment to point them in the direction of the car rental. They start arguing over it and soon the mayor of Tula's father's village, Victory, comes to welcome them. Victory is glad they came after she sent out the invite to them. She welcomes them to the reunion and reveals that she's a distant relative of theirs. Immediately, the family gathers around her to embrace their cousin. She hands them the cups of coffee she's holding and leads them to the car. They are surprised to see the old-looking lorry before them. Victory hands the key to Tula and offers to give her directions while she is driving. The others pack their bags into the vehicle and Victory turns on an upbeat Greek song to keep their vibes up for the trip. The ride to the village is an enjoyable one as they behold ancient sites from the vehicle, but Victory refuses them to take a stop so they don't miss the boat scheduled to take them to the village. They get to the beach and she finally allows them an opportunity to swim. The whole family runs in excitement straight into the water to take a dip. After the fun, they arrive at the area where a boat will take their vehicle and them across the sea to where they will continue the journey on their vehicle down to their village. On arriving at the village, they take pictures they can send to Maria, after which Victory runs off to rest. They wonder about trying to locate their way around, wondering why the village is practically empty. A scary old woman called Alexandra suddenly pops right in front of them, causing them to gasp in shock. She interrogates them and upon learning who their father is, she informs Tula that she was a chin hair away from being her mother, and then she turns her back to leave them alone. It's nighttime and Aristotle returns to inform the others that he can't find any restaurants or hotels open. Aunt Vula suggests retiring to where she and their mother grew up. Ian takes note of the tree where they are sitting and Tula reveals the place is recorded in her father's journal as the square where he used to come play with his friends back in the day. From nowhere, Alexandra suddenly pops out addressing Nick as his father. He corrects her and Tula asks her to direct them to their father's house. Alexandra takes them down a dark alley to where she sells soup. She introduces them to her helper, Kamer, who is like a daughter to her. Kamer is an orphan from Syria who lives with her. Alexandra sees the invitation for the reunion and informs them that Victory only got one vote, which led to her becoming the mayor of their town. Just then, Victory walks into their gathering and Alexandra asks what she is up to with the invites. Victory reveals that she sent out an invite to all the people who left their village years back. She wants them to come back and behold the growth of their city as she has come up with some plans to further develop their town. Everyone is mesmerized to hear that there are currently just 6 people in the town. Ian is bewildered and questions what Victory is saying. After all, they had to fly down to Greece just to come hand over his father-in-law's journal to his childhood friends, who will be attending the reunion. And now, she's saying they are the only ones present. Tula attempts to quell the tension and suggests they go lodge in a hotel to ease off their stress. Alexandra offers to take them to the biggest house in town since it's now empty. On getting to their father's house, they realize that it's just a single room just like it used to be in his days where everyone lived together in a single room. Aristotle and Nick light the fire while the others take their things in to get settled in. Tula suddenly sees a strange man by the bush close to the window, but he disappears by the time she calls for Ian. At midnight, while everyone is sleeping, Victory gets Paris and Aristotle to join her and her friends, Camera and Christos, out at a nightclub. Camera and Christos are lovers, but they have to keep their relationship a secret because Christos' father wants him to marry a Greek woman, and Camera is an immigrant. They join the party, and soon Paris and Aristotle awkwardly end up dancing and having a fun-filled time before sneaking home in the morning. Later in the day, the ladies step out into the town market. They split into groups. Tula and Vula step out to get some groceries in a shop, and the shop owner eventually gets them drunk. Tula inquires about her father's friend, hoping someone might recognize them. She notices the strange man spying on them again, but he disappears as soon as he realizes that she got a glimpse of him. Meanwhile, at the village, Nick goes around in search of the oldest tree in town, and he stumbles upon his Thea Frieda staring at a memorial. She reveals it holds records of many wars in previous times. Nick recounts that his dad never speaks about it, but then, it made him a strong man. Ian, on the other hand, meets Alexandra to point him in the direction of the river. On getting there, he sees a monk. The monk hands him a container made of animal hide for water and a list containing some information he doesn't understand because they are written in Greek. On the way back to the village, Paris laughs seeing her mom and aunt who are drunk laughing hysterically when there is nothing actually funny. She has never seen her mother drink anything other than communion wine, and now, she seems to be excessively filled with alcohol. On getting to the house, Tula informs Ian that at the market, she saw the guy who was lurking by their window the previous night, and he seems handsome. Ian perceives the smell of alcohol from her mouth and thinks she's simply drunk. She suggests they go make out in the chicken coop as they walk into the house. Later, Alexandra hosts the family and Victory for dinner. Nick sees his sister helping to prepare the family dinner. He walks over to her and she informs him that she did not find anyone who knows their father's friends. He assures her she will find them in due time so she doesn't get worked up. Christos comes to meet Camera, who is also helping with some preparations, and he kisses her lips casually. She notices that Nick is sitting right behind her, and so she pushes for him to leave before someone else sees them. Aunt Vula suddenly comes out to announce that she will be cooking, so everyone should put on their eating pants. Nick is excited and prepares himself to feed as much as he so desires. In the evening, the family gathers inside the house for dinner. Victory takes pictures with Ian and Paris while the others are moving about. Aunt Vula whispers to Aristotle, questioning why he's yet to make his move on Paris. She doesn't like the idea of being friends unless they suddenly turn out to be cousins. While Alexandra is moving around with some dishes, the wind suddenly blows a spoon off the plate she is carrying. She reads the signs and announces that they will be having company, but no one is paying attention to her because they are all engrossed in one or the other. Minutes later, Tula sees the man who has been spying on her walk towards them. Victory announces that he's Alexandra's son Peter, and he is also Christos' father. Ian questions why Tula is smiling and looking at the man who is also staring at her. Peter corrects the misconception that he's not attracted to her. Rather, he is her brother. Everyone gets taken by surprise at that revelation. Alexandra reveals that she was with Nick and Tula's father before he met their mother after he left the village, and their father did not know that Peter was his son. Tula and Nick are shocked by the revelation. Christos walks in and Peter introduces him to everyone as his son. Camera signals them not to say anything about her and Christos. Nick, Tula, Ian, and Paris run to hug the newly discovered members of their family. Tula compliments Alexandra for bearing the burden all by herself. Victory proposes a toast and Nick lets out the bombshell of Camera and Christos' relationship. Peter and Alexandra are speechless on hearing that. Christos apologizes to them for finding out in such a manner, and Camera quickly chips in that they are in love, and she wouldn't want them to think badly of her. Unfortunately, Alexandra is disappointed and Peter is unhappy with the news they are receiving. The next morning, Victory puts a call to some people she's expecting to show up for the reunion while a banner is being set up on the street in that regard. Aristotle confirms if anyone is going to show up or if it'll be just as wonderful as the previous night. He is referring to her toast the previous night about living the truth, which led Nick to blurt out a secret he's not supposed to. Inside the house, Ian walks over to sit by his wife while Nick is shaving off the little hair that is beginning to sprout around his beard. Nick suddenly brings up what happened the previous night and how mad Peter is that Camera is not Greek. Ian sees no reason to be bothered because he's a non-Greek and he's doing great with the family. Nick wonders how they are going to break the news to their mom that their father has another son when Tula's phone starts ringing. Meanwhile, the aunties are on a boat fishing. Frieda asks how Vula intends to break the news to her sister, but Vula confesses she has already called her sister to reveal that her husband has another child. Nick sees it's from their sister Athena. He picks up the call and sits with Tula and Ian so they can all appear on the video call. Athena places the phone in front of their mother so they can all talk about the situation at hand. Maria guesses Peter's mother must be Alexandra because her husband used to call that name in his sleep. She reveals that there is always more room for love, being that Peter's birth was a long time ago. She extends her greetings to Peter and can't wait to see him. As the day goes on, everyone engages in other activities. Nick goes on a stroll with Peter after they visit the place where they make olive oil. Peter boasts of how well Christos has done for himself despite growing up without his late mother. He's enraged that after achieving that much, Christos wants to settle for a stranger. Nick advises him to chill off and requests to know where the oldest tree is because their dad told him he used to sit underneath it and dream. Peter suggests he asks Alexandra because he has no idea where it is, but Nick refuses the idea blatantly. Ian joins his wife, who is walking down the street, and invites her to come along with him to go hang out with the monk. She refuses because she needs to go find her father's friends. So, she gets into the vehicle and drives off. Minutes later, she joined her brothers. She apologizes for assuming he was attracted to her, and Peter clarifies that he was never attracted to her. Tula shows him their father's journal, which he kept from the time when he went to America. Ian arrives at the house of his monk friend and shares some food items that were gifted to them. The monk thanks him in Greek, but unfortunately, he doesn't fully understand the language, so they just laugh about it and continue their conversation. At noon, the younger sit out chatting, but they quickly get on their feet when they see Nick and Peter approaching them. Paris and Aristotle stand watching what will happen while Camer tightly holds Christos' arms, just in case Peter intends to separate them from each other. To their surprise, Peter opens his arms wide to embrace his son and Camer. Tula spends her day moving all around town, hoping to find a way through which she can reach her dad's friends, but it turns out all her efforts will yield no result. She meets up with Ian close to the sea and feels like a failure because she hasn't been able to fulfill the very one thing her dad ever asked her to do. Ian comforts her so she doesn't get too worked up. He brings out a list he acquired from the monk. It contains the list of all the older people who moved away and where they moved to. She opens her eyes wide in surprise as the list begins to make sense to her. She recognizes the names on the list and laughs joyously, thanking her husband for helping out. Tula picks up her phone immediately to call their relatives Nikki and Angelo to assist them in locating her father's 3 friends. The duo accepts to help them out, and in no time, they board a flight to Greece. At the house, Ian takes Tula outside the balcony to enjoy the scenery. They realize that they've never gone on a vacation because they spend most of their time working. Ian confesses that he wouldn't want them to just work away their youthful days. He wants them to have a real vacation. Tula then puts a call through to Nikki to find out if they made any progress. When Angelo and Nikki arrive at the airport, they head to the seaport where they will be transported to the island where Thanasis lives, Tula's father's friend. Nikki sees a man they partied with the previous summer. She walks up to him and describes the 80-year-old Thanasis. Tula gets a text from Angelo assuring her they are on the search for her father's friends. Ian finally agrees that something is wrong with Paris, but they will have to let her work it out on her own accord. In the courtyard, Aristotle thinks the reunion might not hold anymore. Victory disagrees, and with firm belief, she informs him that the people will turn up on Saturday. Meanwhile, Camer and Christos inform the family that they will be getting married on the same day as the reunion. Everyone is excited for them as they receive hugs and good wishes from the family members until Alexandra shows up. She is enraged that Peter is allowing Christos to marry a refugee and blames her grandson for keeping secrets from his family. Tula takes the lead to reveal her secret, which she kept away from her parents. The others join too until Paris drops the bomb. Ian is surprised to find out that his daughter failed her entire first year of college and is now on probation. He offers to call the dean, but Paris refuses him. Alexandra tells her that she will overcome it on her own, just like she overcame raising Peter all by herself. Finally, she gives Christos her permission to marry Camer. The wedding preparations kickstart immediately as everyone runs around to put things in place the next day. Nikki and Angelo decide to take a break and just party. Fortunately, Nikki notices the name on the shirt of one of the musical band members at the event. She recognizes it as Thanasis, and immediately, she calls for Angelo. The man turns out to be the exact person they are in search of. Through his help, they can reach the other 2 men after several days of searching for them. Nick finally decides to search for the location of the oldest tree from Alexandra. When he's sure no one is watching, he takes a golden urn with him to the spot. Unfortunately, Peter sees him and he tries to explain the circumstances so Tula won't come to the knowledge of his actions. Peter outsmarts him and hurriedly exposes him to Tula. She takes the urn to her Aunt Frieda to find out what Nick is up to. This is when she realizes that her brother once inquired how to properly do a Greek burial from their aunt when their dad passed away. On the day of the wedding, the family helps Peter pull out some large pieces of rocks that blocked the flow of water after a rock slide. They successfully shift the rocks, allowing the water to gain passage, which in turn will flow through to the town square, transporting water to their community. The wedding ceremony begins in the evening. The family members and the remaining few members of the community accompany the couple down the lighted walkway around the empty streets, cheering and jubilation. Suddenly, their attention gets drawn to the sound of vehicles approaching, and to their utmost surprise, people troop in for the reunion. Tula and her husband scream in excitement as they watch her cousin Nikki alight from the vehicle with all the people she found. She welcomes her father's friends and with smiles on her face, she hands over her father's journal as well as his childhood pictures with his friends. Victory gasps in excitement upon seeing their people turn out. She takes pride in herself for pulling the reunion through. Christos invites the men to come dance the traditional dance while Camer invites the ladies to dance the Syrian dance with her. While dancing, Aristotle and Paris stare at each other, smiling. Her Aunt Frieda reveals that she dreamt about Aristotle the previous night because she placed a Greek voodoo under her pillow. The voodoo enables one to dream of the one whom they will marry. Paris is surprised, yet she wonders why her family can't help but meddle. Nick comes to meet his sister and volunteers to hold her bag while she joins the others to dance, instead of just watching them dance. He realizes that she's now aware of his plans to use the ash neutralizing kit to bury their father beside his favorite tree so he can grow into an olive tree. Tula believes that it's their mom who is to decide and not him. But he argues with her because their mother is not in the right frame of mind to make that decision. He appoints her as the head of the family since she got them to Greece and she handed over their dad's journal to his friends. After all, Athena, who's the oldest, has 6 kids bothering her already and Peter seems to be busy as well. Tula gets emotional. She believes he should be the head of the family because he is the one who brings their father's remains to Greece. Nick sniffles and suggests they share the title and hold family dinners together. The duo steals Peter from the dance floor and all 3 of them head to their dad's favorite tree to bury his remains right at that instant. Meanwhile, Aristotle tries to talk to Paris but she stops him. She shares that she's a mess, needs to fix her life and now he knows why she's been avoiding him. She thinks he wouldn't want to date her. However, all those don't matter to him and he even thanks Aristotle the philosopher for educating the human mind and heart. Paris laughs at how Greek he's becoming and suggests they step out of the party to go take some fresh air. Paris suggests they take things slow but she soon jumps to kiss him. Her aunties pull them apart and warn them not to make babies until she's done with college and buys her parents a house. Alexandra informs Victory that the people will not stay but Victory has other ideas. She intends to give the migrants who will be staying in some of the empty houses in their town. This makes Alexandra think she might be a good mayor after all. Tula and Ian get away from the celebration to the rooftop to have some alone time together. The next day, the family set out back to America along with Peter. They decide to prepare a family dinner after a long time. Nick volunteers Tula for the cooking and every one of them excitedly gathers around for a group hug.